حالا این آقا هم همینطور مرتباً ادعا میکنه ولی ما ناب آوردیم و چه کردیم. به نظر من ملت ایران رو از این چیزا نباید ترسوند. ملت ایران تحت تأثیر این حرفا قرار نمیگیره، از برخورد حق نمیهراسه. ما شروع کننده نیستیم، ما به کسی ظلم نمیخوایم بکنیم، به کشوری حمله نمیخوایم بکنیم، اما در مقابل اون کسی که طمع داشته باشه حمله بخواد بکنه، اذیت بکنه، ملت ایران مشت محکمی به او خواهد زد. این را هم آمریکایی‌ها بدونن که اگر این دفعه جنگی را بندازن، این جنگ منطقه‌ای خواهد.
Why wouldn't he say that? Of course you can say that, but we have the biggest, most powerful ships in the world over there, very close, a couple of days, and hopefully we'll make a deal. If we don't make a deal, then we'll find out whether or not he was right. Well, Cuba's a failing nation. It has been for a long time, but now it doesn't have Venezuela to prop it up. So we're talking to the people from Cuba, the highest people in Cuba. We'll see what happens. I want the people that came here that were horribly treated by Cuba to be taken care of, to be able to go back and do what they have to do. You know, they have their family there. They haven't been able to see them in years, many, many years. So I think we're going to make a deal with Cuba. It's in bad shape. Cuba's in bad shape. Cuba has a humanitarian problem.
Do you support all federal Border Patrol agents and ICE wearing body cams?
We'll be talking about that in the near future. Okay? But you saw my note that I put out yesterday. That was pretty, I think it was pretty conclusive. Look, we stopped crime in our country and the border is the best it's ever been. Thank you very much. I got to go to a wedding.
Satellite images reveal new construction at Iran's nuclear sites, facilities bombed last year by Israel and the United States. But these aren't ordinary repairs. Are they rebuilding or hiding something far more sensitive? New roofs cover damaged buildings at Isfahan and Natanz while work continues underground. Experts warn what's happening beneath these roofs could be impossible to see from space. Analysts say the coverings are likely meant to conceal salvage operations, recovering highly enriched uranium or other sensitive materials left after last year's strikes. They want to see what survived without letting Israel or the US know, says Andrea Stricker from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. With inspectors barred from the International Atomic Energy Agency, satellite monitoring is the only way the world can keep tabs, and these new structures make that much harder. Last June, Israel hit Iran's Natanz and Isfahan sites, targeting enrichment facilities and centrifuge production. The US followed up with strikes on underground halls using bunker-busting bombs and cruise missiles. The attacks caused major damage, slowing Iran's nuclear program, but leaving key assets buried or scattered. Natanz housed advanced centrifuges enriching uranium up to 60%, while Isfahan produced uranium gas used in enrichment. A third site, Fordo, remains deep underground and heavily fortified. Now, satellite images show new roofs completed over destroyed Natanz and Isfahan buildings. Excavation continues at Natanz's Pickaxe Mountain, possibly signaling a new underground nuclear facility. Tunnels near Isfahan are being reinforced and reopened, while dirt is being filled into other tunnels, a defensive measure Iran used before the strikes. Experts like Sarah Burkhart of the Institute for Science and International Security say these roofs are part of an operation to recover assets or rubble without letting us know what they're getting out of there. It's not just nuclear facilities. Iran is rapidly rebuilding missile sites, including Parchin and Talegan 2, which are linked to high-explosive testing for nuclear weapons. Analysts say these sites are being reinforced to resist future strikes. All this comes amid rising U.S.-Iran tensions. President Trump has repeatedly demanded that Tehran negotiate a nuclear deal or face the threat of military action. At the same time, Iran insists its program is peaceful, even as the West points out that the country retains the technical capability to pursue a nuclear weapon. New roofs, secret tunnels, and rebuilt missile sites. The world is watching, but Iran may be keeping its most critical moves hidden. The big question, is this simply reconstruction or a covert effort to recover what was thought destroyed?
Breaking news. I wanted to share this social media post from Fox News stating that a U.S. fighter jet shoots down unmanned Iranian drone that was approaching USS Abraham Lincoln in Arabian Sea, U.S. Central Command spokesman says. So that is the breaking news that we are following at this hour. And I wanted to share just a little bit more information as we are learning new details. The U.S. Central Command says a U.S. Navy fighter jet shot down an Iranian drone that was approaching the aircraft carrier in the Arabian Sea. This is a post by the Associated Press sharing that information, saying that there was unclear intent. Now, in an emailed statement Tuesday, U.S. Central Command said the drone, quote, aggressively approached the aircraft carrier with unclear intent, and it continued to fly toward the ship despite de-escalatory measures taken by U.S. forces operating in international waters. The U.S. military says the shootdown also occurred within hours of another incident in which Iranian forces harassed a U.S. flagged and U.S. crewed merchant vessel that was sailing in that area. The Shahed 139 drone was shot down by an F-35C fighter jet from the Lincoln, which, according to U.S. Central Command, was sailing about 500 miles from Iran's southern coast. The military statement noted that no American troops were harmed and no equipment was damaged. Then, hours later, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps forces harassed the merchant vessel Stena Imperative. That's according to the U.S. military. And according to the military statement, two boats and an Iranian drone approached the ship, quote, at high speeds and threatened to board and seize the tanker. So we did want to share the very latest as we are continuing to follow this breaking news. U.S. Central Command says a U.S. Navy fighter jet shot down an Iranian drone that was approaching the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln in the Arabian Sea. In an emailed statement, U.S. Central Command said that the drone aggressively approached the aircraft carrier with unclear intent, and it continued to fly toward the ship despite de-escalatory measures taken by U.S. forces operating in international waters. The U.S. military says the shootdown also occurred within hours of another incident in which Iranian forces harassed a U.S. flagged and U.S. crewed merchant vessel that was sailing in that area. We, of course, are going to continue to follow all of the developments of this breaking news and also share reaction from top leaders as they come in. For now, though, stepping away for a break.
Just days before high-stakes nuclear talks resume, Iranian state television drops striking new footage: underground missile cities packed with some of Iran's most powerful weapons. At the center of that message is one missile in particular, Khorramshahr 4, also known as Khaybar. This is not just another weapons reveal, it's a signal, timed, calculated, and aimed squarely at Iran's rivals. The Khorramshahr 4 is Iran's most advanced medium-range ballistic missile, developed by the country's Aerospace Industries Organization and operated by the IRGC Aerospace Force. First unveiled in May 2023, this missile represents the fourth generation of the Khorramshahr family, a program rooted in North Korean missile designs but heavily upgraded by Iran. Let's break down why this missile matters. Range and power. Khorramshahr 4 has a reported range of around 2,000 kilometers. That puts Israel, U.S. bases across the Gulf, and even parts of southeastern Europe within reach. But range is only part of the story. This missile can carry a massive payload, up to 1,800 kilograms, one of the heaviest warheads in Iran's arsenal. It can deliver a single high-impact warhead, cluster munitions, or potentially multiple warheads. In short, fewer missiles, more damage. Speed and survivability. Iran claims the missile reaches hypersonic speeds, up to Mach 16 outside the atmosphere and Mach 8 during re-entry. That extreme speed, combined with a maneuverable re-entry vehicle, makes interception far more difficult for missile defense systems. It's liquid-fueled, but with hypergolic propellants, allowing launch preparation in as little as 12 to 15 minutes. Fast to fire, hard to stop. The recent footage shows these missiles stored inside vast underground tunnel networks, what Iran calls missile cities. Thousands of weapons, hidden, protected, and ready to launch even after a first strike. This confirms what analysts suspected. Khorramshahr 4 is now fully operational. All of this comes amid rising U.S.-Iran tensions in early 2026. Nuclear talks are restarting in Oman. Washington wants limits, not just on nuclear activity, but missiles, proxies, and regional aggression. And the backdrop? A 12-day war with Israel in 2025, increased U.S. military deployments, and open warnings from Tehran that any conflict would target U.S. allies, especially Israel. Iran says this is deterrence, not preparation for immediate war, but the message is unmistakable. We are armed, we are protected, and we can strike back hard. For now, analysts see this as leverage at the negotiating table, but in a region already on edge, displays like this raise one dangerous risk: miscalculation. And in today's Middle East, that's a risk no one can afford.
way with our license plate of social worker, also going to be your boss.
The USS Abraham Lincoln is no ordinary backdrop. As one of America's most powerful aircraft carriers, its presence in the Arabian Sea sends a signal that echoes far beyond the deck. This weekend, that signal became unmistakable. U.S. Central Command Chief Admiral Brad Cooper visited the carrier alongside President Trump's lead Iran negotiators, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. The visit comes at a critical moment, with diplomacy fragile and military pressure very real. Witkoff described the carrier and its strike group as keeping us safe and reinforcing President Trump's doctrine of peace through strength, a phrase that blends negotiation with unmistakable force. The timing is no accident. Just days earlier, U.S. and Iranian officials held talks in Oman. U.S. President Donald Trump described the talks as very good, confirming more discussions are planned next week. But the presence of a U.S. carrier suggests Washington may be preparing for multiple outcomes. Trump has repeatedly warned that force remains an option if Iran refuses to strike a deal. The deployment of the Abraham Lincoln and other warships underscores that warning. Diplomacy backed by firepower. Gulf Arab states fear that any military confrontation with Iran could spiral quickly, dragging the region into a wider conflict. Memories of last year's 12-day Israel-Iran war remain fresh. Iran, meanwhile, is urging calm. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says nuclear negotiations must happen without threats or tension, insisting talks will focus solely on the nuclear issue, nothing more. Adding another layer, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to meet President Trump in Washington this week, with Iran squarely at the top of the agenda. For now, the USS Abraham Lincoln stays on station. Diplomats talk, warships wait, and the region watches every move, knowing the balance between negotiation and confrontation has rarely felt this thin. A chilling warning has erupted from the highest levels of Iran's military command. Tehran says any strike on Iranian soil will not be limited, controlled, or contained. It will spread, it will escalate, and it will ignite a chain reaction across the Middle East. As U.S. forces surge into the region, Iran is drawing a hard red line, signaling that the next move could shatter fragile balances, redraw security maps, and push the region toward a confrontation with consequences far beyond a single battlefield. The warning is clear. The stakes have never been higher. Iran's top military commander has issued one of the strongest warnings yet amid rising regional tensions. In a message marking Iran's Air Force Day, Chief of Staff Major General Abdul Rahim Musavi said any military action against the Islamic Republic would end in what he called absolute and strategic defeat for Iran's enemies. The language was blunt. Musavi warned that even a limited strike would not remain localized. Instead, he said it would expand into a broader regional conflict, spreading instability far beyond Iran's borders and dragging in multiple actors across the Middle East. The warning comes as U.S. forces surge into the region, deploying additional air and naval assets and openly signaling readiness for potential action. Iranian officials see those moves not as deterrence, but as preparation. Musavi emphasized that Iran's Army Air Force plays a central role in what Tehran calls active deterrence. He said the force has undergone continuous modernization and now stands at its highest level of operational readiness, capable of responding rapidly to any threat or miscalculation. According to Iran's military leadership, that readiness is not symbolic. Musavi stressed that Iran's response would be decisive and coordinated across all branches of the armed forces, designed to impose what he described as heavy and irreparable costs on both attackers and their supporters. The warning also references recent history. Iranian officials point to what they describe as a 12-day Israeli-American confrontation earlier this year, arguing it reshaped their defensive calculations and reinforced the need for heightened readiness across the military. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has echoed similar warnings in recent days, saying any U.S.-initiated war would quickly spiral into a region-wide confrontation, one Washington would not be able to control.
This gentleman keeps claiming that we have brought warships to the region and done this or that. I think you shouldn't scare the Iranian nation with such things, as it won't be affected by such remarks. It doesn't fear rightful confrontation. We are not the instigators, and we do not seek to attack any country. But the Iranian nation will deliver a firm blow to anyone who attacks or harasses it. The Americans must be aware that if they wage a war this time, it will be a regional war.